Hello and welcome to the video. In this guide I will be covering everything you need to know to create a crystal clear beer without taking up too much of your time. This will start with an explanation as to why a beer can be hazy and how to combat this when it isn't desired. So let's get started. Haze in beer comes from proteins, polyphenols and yeast cells hanging around when they're not welcome. This can start as early as the mash. These will occur if your mash hasn't been fully converted, as you'll leave behind unconverted starches in the wort. These are non-fermentable and can stay suspended in the beer. They will also react with proteins and tannins to form chill haze. Haze can become permanent if it's not addressed before packaging. The other issue is if your mash pH or temperature was off, then enzymes like alpha amylase and beta amylase will not work efficiently. That means there will be less sugar for your yeast, which will lead to a stuck fermentation or off flavours. The other factor here is that you can also create much more haze if you actually use lots of wheat or oats as part of your grain bill. Do not use these if you intend to have a crystal looking clear beer. On the hot side, clarity starts with good habits. Stir in the protein that forms at the start of the boil and also during the boil, allowing it to drop down into the bottom of your brewing system. This will be left behind when you transfer. Naturally, this is a step you will want to do anyway to avoid a dreaded boil over. It has to be said though that the more thorough you are with this, the better, and the further ahead you will be with clarity before you've even finished your brew. However, I would strongly advise against removing this foam completely from the beer, as some often new brewers like to do. By doing this, you're removing proteins that help with head retention and mouthfeel in your finished beer. Early foam that is formed after adding hops can also contain hop oils and bittering compounds that are essential to your recipe. The bottom line here is that removing foam during the boil might seem tidy, but it reduces beer quality and is unnecessary. Let it boil down naturally for the best beer. In fact, the coagulation brought on by boiling temperatures already acts to remove excess proteins and polyphenols, which are the two primary causes of haze in finished beer. Then later in the boil you should drop in well-forked tablets or Irish moss or other alternatives of a similar nature. Most products of this type are used in the last 10 to 15 minutes of your boil. These bind up haze-forming proteins and make your drug look like a rock. Cheap, effective and worth it. Consult with your local homebrew store to see which versions they can actually supply you. Another major factor is always be sure to chill your wort as quickly as possible after the boil. When you cool the wort rapidly, proteins and tannins that didn't drop out during the hot break will clump together and fall out. These haze-causing compounds become solid particles that sink to the bottom instead of staying dissolved. If these compounds stay in suspension because you cooled slowly, they end up in your fermenter, making the beer harder to clear later. A strong cold break means less gunk for findings to deal with later. You should also note that there are further benefits. Firstly, your yeast will also perform better in a cleaner environment, which also assists clarity further. There is also a reduced risk of infection where bacteria could take hold, as well as a reduced chance of other off flavours. So as you can realise, a fast killing process not only saves time, but also makes your end beer clearer and less prone to other issues too. Careful yeast selection is also vital when planning crystal clear beer. Some yeast is going to be much more suitable than others. Kveik or some English ale yeast just don't flocculate well, meaning they stay suspended and create a murky effect in the beer. These yeast strains certainly have their place, but if you're looking for totally crystal clear beer, then they are to be avoided. This pains me to point out as someone who is a huge fan of this yeast, but it is vital to manage your expectations, of course. The next step for crystal clear beer is via cold crashing. After your fermentation is done, drop your beer to 0 to 2 degrees Celsius or between 32 to 35 degrees Fahrenheit for 2 to 3 days. This cold crash step greatly speeds up the clarity process as it allows proteins, yeast and hop particles to become heavier and then clump together, allowing them to drop out of your beer. As an end result, you'll obtain much clearer beer straight away without having to wait some weeks. This process will also improve flavour stability and will make transfer to your keg or bottles cleaner and easier. Next up we have fining, which when combined with all previous methods will be the final method that will give you your crystal clear beer. There are various ways to go here, but here I will cover two popular options. Firstly, you have biofine, which is a choice for vegans that for the most part offers a fast and effective alternative to using gelatin. The downsides here are cost and in some cases will not be as effective as gelatin. Personally, I just use gelatin, and one very nice thing about this is that you can simply buy unflavoured gelatin powder in the supermarket and it is far from expensive too. It will clear beer very nicely, even if you have broken some of the crystal clear beer rules already mentioned in this video. However, if you have followed along and have done everything you can, then you can expect the clearest of beer quickly by adding in this fining step. So let's now walk through the process of using gelatin with a view to it being with a 19 litre keg. Firstly, you'll want to boil half a cup of water, which in metric is 120 millilitres or so. Be sure to let it cool to about 65 degrees Celsius or 150 degrees Fahrenheit before using it. You should then add 1 teaspoon of unflavoured gelatin powder, letting it sit for 5 to 10 minutes to allow the gelatin to bloom, which is where it hydrates and softens. This ensures full activation and maximum clarity when used cold side. You should then give this a very good stir to ensure that all of the gelatin is dissolved and amalgamated within the liquid. You can then add this liquid to the bottom of a clean and sanitary keg or bottling bucket just before the transfer of your cold crash beer. Given a few short days, your beer should now be crystal clear. You may find that at first it has some chill haze, but this will clear up once you increase the temperature. One final piece of advice for serving crystal clear beer is an extra hack that I have done with all of my kegs, which is to install a floating dip tube to the lid. This works fantastically at just drawing beer from the top of the keg where the clearest beer is found rather than just the bottom. Before you can complete this hack, you will need to have a keg lid the same as shown on screen now. This has a serving bullock post for connecting your beer line to the top of the lid, and underneath there is a bulb fitting for connecting the floating beer tube line. Here is one fitted example of how this looks. At the end of the dip tube, as you can see, there is a float that keeps the dip tube floating at all times. So not only are you just drawing the cleanest beer from the top, but you're also not going to pick up any waste products from the bottom, which in many cases makes the first pour from a keg something you throw away, wasting beer, which is simply a crime. Another cheap addition is to add a filter as shown to the line and have the float hanging from this. The benefits of doing this are that firstly any solids will be blocked by the filter and that the dip tube will always be present within the beer, avoiding any serving issues that some users have faced when the dip tube caught on the side wall of the serving keg and it turned into the empty space instead of in the beer itself. All of what you see here are also available as can products, so they are sensibly priced, and converting all of your kegs will not cost you very much money at all, and I would highly recommend this as a very worthwhile keg upgrade. As you have seen by now, the secrets to crystal clear beer involve various keys to success. This is not to say that you must follow each and every one of these to obtain good looking beer, but when you can, the end results can simply be stunning from a visual standpoint. However, it does have to be said that beer is not really just for looking at, as it is for drinking, so do not let the pursuit of clarity eclipse this. I do hope that you found this video useful, informative and interesting. If so, why not consider liking and subscribing? For further support you can join the channel's Facebook group, and if you would like to support the channel then check out the channel's merchandise store, as all profits go back into the channel. Until next time, happy brewing!